5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good morning, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever that was. Good day, everyone. Good morning. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
And each week we'll try and bring you some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
If I sit like that, do I look like an angel?
Yeah, there's a little bit of light. Yeah, actually, there's a bit of glow.
I'm going to heaven. Can you remember a program called Stairway to Heaven or something like that?
Not really.
It was about like angels, or it was about a guy who was an angel, and it was like really old American type of. I don't know if it was Stairway to Heaven. Anyway, and we do, and ABC aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities. And
we'll be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops. If you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help. We can help. Oh, amazing. Amazing. We've got Mr. Alan Curry joining us as well. And it's wonderful to see each other in the holy month of Ramzan. Jalf, it's how's it going?
Yeah, it's usually, if you can recall, I usually take a little bit of a sabbatical on with the show during Ramadan. But I think the timing is such that it's difficult because I usually try to go to bed for 11, which is very unusual for me, because my clock is it's usually half 12-ish. So I'm trying to go, because I usually go to sleep about half 12, right? So after the restaurants close and A, B, C, and D. But now I'm trying to go to sleep at 11, wake up at 4, to do sehri, and but that's not, so you get up and get some little bits and bobs prepared, and you do some prayers and you go back to sleep. Well, you try to go back to sleep because, let's say you're finished in an hour, by 5 o'clock you're done, but then you have to try and go back to sleep, and that doesn't happen straight away. So it could be another hour, hour and a half until you actually really fall asleep, but then you fall into a bit of a deep sleep. And then to try and get back up, it's really difficult. So that's the hardest part. But in terms of the fast itself, excuse me, it's not too bad, because you're breaking your fast around about, it's about 6:15 now.
Which is great.
And if you skip a breakfast, because sometimes these days, if you're doing like intermittent fasting, or you're going to the gym and you're conscious about your weight tomorrow, you're usually advised to miss a particular, whether it be breakfast or a lunch, eat 2 times a day. So let's say you're missing breakfast, and because of your intermittent fasting, you're eating a little bit later, let's say about 2:30, 3-ish. You only have to wait another 3 hours. So so it's pretty decent. But obviously it still involves a lot of discipline. You have to then go to do Tarawih prayers, which is around about 8, and that can last about an hour or so. So it's a month which you're very much focused on being disciplined, really dedicated, understanding the Quran and what it stands for a lot more. So that does take up extra time, and fortunately for myself, I'm able to adapt my work around these important factors, which makes it a lot easier. So yeah, it's been good.
Good. It's nice to hear, and you're right. The days aren't as long as they could be. I recall certainly the extended summer where where it
Oh,
was,
the last few
almost
years,
like
last few
three,
years.
4 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah,
then like 9, 10 o'clock at night, 9:30, quarter
yeah,
to 10. It was like
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And that was just a few years ago we went through that. Each year
Yeah.
it's getting easier for us.
Yeah. And it'll get shorter and
Yeah.
shorter. I mean, one of the big things that was one of the things that I um was mindful of was and I think it was a great celebration last year when three of the major religions all sort of coincided, didn't they? There was like the Jewish, the Muslim, and the Christian sort of Easter. It all happened all at the same similar type of time.
Mm. I can't recall, but it would be nice if there was like a unified date for celebration. But Amar,
Or
it's
faith. I think that would be
yeah.
lovely.
But I think unfortunately the faith in the UK it's just really on the back burner at the moment. It's not kind of a big priority in society. When you look at the history of London and how London grew, it was all about the churches. If you're for
Well, if you look at the whole of the world, if you look at the whole of the world, right? Um, and if you look at America in particular, right? I remember going to North Carolina, and it's like God-fearing county, and probably every 200-300 yards, right? So literally rows and rows and rows of churches. There was like that much faith. Like everybody, everywhere was part of it. And even
mm,
if you look at so Newcastle were quite fortunate in that, well, fortunate, dependent upon your beliefs. But Heaton was and Heaton Road has and had the most number of churches in the close proximity in a particular area. There was several churches all on Heaton Road, which was a really big deal. But yeah, the people have just lost their faith, haven't they?
mm, mm. I mean, there used to be a church in Birmingham. I remember during university times, and that church used to be. It was a nightclub called and it was a church. It was just a church, and it was a nightclub, and it was a very popular night spot. So I think the loss of faith is, I think it's part of the plan of society, isn't it? Because when we went to school, remember we had to sing the hymns and
But I love
you know
that. I
the
I love I
yeah
loved singing hymns.
the faith was a part of schooling when you're going to school. But I know one of my colleagues at work went for a teaching course, and they were very, very clear that you must not discuss God or say that God is responsible for any type of achievement in education and stuff like that. And that was like crystal clear that they could not make any reference to God, and that was part of the curriculum. So obviously there's a plan to not be faith orientated, and I think that is reflected amongst the youth a lot more because when we were growing up, remember at Christmas time, all the Jesus movies and stuff that were there. These days, there's nothing like what it used to be, and I feel it's a bit sad because especially at Christmas, I love watching all the holy movies and learn and understand the faith, and but it's all
Oh
gone.
yeah, I think yeah, and used to love like all of those things. You know, even like Spartacus was like one of the best
Yeah,
movies ever, wasn't it? I'm Spartacus and I'm
yeah.
Spartacus, things like that. But yeah, I must admit, the whole faith element is isn't as prevalent as it used to be. And you know, who are we to judge other people? However, I did see something really interesting, right, the other day, which was a Russian Soviet alleged, you know, it was I don't know, I mean, gosh, you know, you get lost somewhere down a rabbit hole looking online or whatever it is, and it's like these things in our hands are horrific. They're horrific. It's Satan incarnate, is what it is, right? But the it was a feature on how allegedly Russia has been working for years on demoralizing the West, right? And I found that really interesting. And it went through the various stages and the generational shifts of, you know, sort of people and getting people's views around Lenin and Marxism and all of this and encouraging sort of, you know, civil unrest and people losing faith and all of that. And I was looking at that with some level of interest. And you know, however, for me, um, the decline of society more broadly, Jaff, was and is, from my perspective. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alan. How you
Hi,
doing?
Jalf. I tell you
Perfect,
what.
perfect timing.
Oh, wait a minute. Where have I gone?
Are you here? Are you
I
there?
can hear
See
you. I just don't know where I've gone.
You're here. I can see you. You
Honestly,
can
I
we can
cannot
see
find.
you and we can hear you. Don't worry.
you're looking fine. You're looking very well.
I see
So
it.
even
Wait
if
a
you
minute.
can't see
Ah,
yourself,
there we are. Jalf, you're always dead nice. Look, I'm dead proud of myself, right? Because I'm always sends me the link via WhatsApp, and my son's taught me how I can link the computer or the laptop to WhatsApp. So I've ended up actually looking you through the computer.
excellent,
Amazing.
excellent.
Oh, it's just
Oh,
like, and I mean,
good
Jeff,
timing.
you've never heard Ammar use that word before, have you?
But Alan, you're looking really well. Have you been on holiday?
No, no, not yet. We might
Have you been on a sunbed?
No, I think it's just out walking the dog every morning. The sun's starting to come out and that. Don't forget, we're out and it's now in the daylight, if that makes sense. So I might be going to Portugal soon because Terry's across there, and we always go across. So I think probably about May time, maybe. But don't mention the word holiday to Mrs. C because obviously I'll just get an ear bashing.
Well, hey, you should be taking Mrs. C on more holidays than what you are.
Well, Jeff, I'm a bit like yourself. You know how you put 25 hours into a day? You don't get a day off when you're retired.
And that's definitely the case. Anyway, there was perfect timing, Mr. Curry, because
Right?
I was talking about the demoralization of society and the fact that there's a breakdown in the fabric of community, and then you turned up.
And then the phone's going in the background. I'm not going to answer, but it'll go somewhere else. So what
And
did you say?
so
The breakdown and the fabrication of society?
on the fabric of society. So we were talking about faith, and I was then sharing with Jaff the fact that this week I'd come across some post somewhere with a alleged Russian defector to America. And it must have been quite, I mean, gosh, the way he was dressed and whatever else must have been like 30, 40 years ago, maybe. But he was talking about how the strategy, the Russian alleged strategy, was and is around breaking down the West's fabric, faith, you know, people losing their faith, people, you know, sort of adopting and adapting Lenin and Marxism and whatever else, and doing it through a generational side of things. Now, anyway, whether that's a conspiracy theory or whatever it is, I'm not too precious. But then I was talking about, for me, how the I felt, and I can recall quite clearly how we changed within this country in particular, was when Jerry Springer came on our airwaves.
Yeah, yeah. Do you
Well,
know?
he wasn't Russian, was he?
Nice one. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
He could be a
He could
Russian
have,
in disguise.
could he have been a fifth columnist? I think they used, didn't they? When they
that
talk
was-
about, if you go back predating all of us, McCarthyism. But the thing that, and I don't disagree with you, Mark. I mean, you know, my great friend who's no longer with us now, Bahal Singh, right? He always, when I was working across there in Gateshead and afterwards, talked about community cohesion. And it didn't matter what faith, religion, colour, creed, etc. Bahal found a way to link people together without it being a buzzword or without it being an issue of different things. He supported Ramadan, he supported Eid, he supported the Jewish faith days, the Muslim days. And in Gateshead, he was a real star. I sometimes feel sadly, notwithstanding what you said about the potential to mislead certain things, is that we use the word community cohesion and communities a little bit more politically than we ever did.
Yes. And we've got those individuals now, Alan, are quite rare.
Yeah, yeah, because I think
You know, as in those individuals, because it almost feels, and whether that was a point in time perspective, Jeff, but there was I'm just thinking, Jeff, if you think about your father, right? If you think about my father, yes, there were distinctly different people, but there was an incredible amount of respect, wasn't there, Jeff? As in,
Yeah, I mean,
growing up.
I think they built. I mean, from what I understand, when they've told me the stories, when they came into the UK in the 60s, like my dad came in 62, right? I think they needed to be a part of the community because in those days they didn't know the language, they didn't understand the culture, they just need to be around their people. So they started working, or whether it be the factories or the restaurants, and there would be a place where they would eat together, and they built the importance, and they could find out, well, which village were you from and which country, which city are you from. So they built a togetherness, and that sense of community was very, very important. I think maybe back in the day they were probably a bit more isolated and the community was their community. And then I think over time they became peers of a wider community as the community grew, but within their own communities they become probably important in that they were the first members of the community, and the families grow, the communities grow, and they were seen, oh, well, we were the first 6 families or 8 families that did this, and this. And I think those were the main reasons. I think the community at the moment, it's a difficult one because I think the community has grew a lot. So since it's grown so much, is the community as cohesive? I'm not really too sure on how much is the community part of the broader community. I'm not really too sure about all of those questions and what the answers are, but they certainly, back in the day, that the community was much more important to the people that were there, and they would go to the community to get that real sense of kind of connection, I guess.
But if I just and of course people change, right? I imagine my son is probably sat there going, "Dad, what do you know?" Is the thing, and equally Alan. I think his phone's embedded in his hand now, is what it is. It's not like, and everyone used to criticize me, but coming back to the respect part, right? Because for me, I genuinely and wholeheartedly respect like everyone, and I mean that in sincerity, regardless of whether I agree with their views or not, regardless of there's an element of okay, what they're doing is whatever they're doing. Having said that, obviously there's the moral compass and there's the more broader range of things where and I'm talking about respect where it's words related. I'm not talking about physical actions where you can end up hurting someone physically. And respect is probably the most critical element. Alan talks about respect and has talked about respect. And I think from an inclusion perspective, respect is what it is, right? There's also tolerance. Tolerance is another important word. However, going back to my point around Jerry Springer, right? Because I think it's really important, because it wasn't until Jerry appeared on our screens normalizing abnormal behavior, where you had donkeys, women, men, kids, uncles, aunties, whatever it is, all in the same pot, the hodgepodge of extreme views and behaviors that then sort of normalized all of that. And then we've seen Jeremy Kyle, and then we've seen, Big Brother, and then we've seen reality TV, which opened up the whole sort of spectrum of stuff that was abnormal being normal.
Well, you know it is, Ammar, and I like your thought process in Jerry Springer. But you see, my background of being a police officer for 35 years. I didn't actually see that as abnormal behavior because I was exposed to behavior like that on a regular basis. What it did was it publicized some of the things that weren't seen by people who weren't in those environments. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm right or wrong on that, but I didn't see it as abnormal because I met those people on a regular basis.
So you met donkeys who were sleeping with women.
I met houses that had donkeys and coal in the bath, right? I met houses that had
all right, okay, well,
it had snakes and had scorpions in a fish tank.
Anyway, right. My point being is, I appreciate.
I'll give you the donkeys, right? There's not a lot of donkeys.
That was your job. You were getting paid to do that. Right?
No, but you're saying
I don't. That's not my chosen career.
No, but
I don't necessarily want to be exposed to that.
To be exposed to the real world?
I don't think it's the real world, is it?
Or was the exposure to the real world that's obviously allowed everything else to go wrong? And all these things were, I use the word underground. They weren't underground. They were just there were dysfunctional families in different areas around, obviously in Northumbria where I worked, but around the country, there are families who are dysfunctional. And as a consequence, Jerry Springer, obviously it was America, Jeremy Kyle highlighted it. But, and it's only my personal view from my very background that I didn't see it other than, well, I deal with that on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, I get that. But actually, there's a lot of stuff, and maybe
no,
and that's it's an incredibly important point that you make, and I think it's a really legitimate point that you make. However, people live in their ivory towers, don't they? Want to be isolated. So you've got, gosh, when I was like starving, literally starving, the people who were living wherever they were living weren't interested in me starving, were they? They were all right. They might have took some pity on me, throwing me a chapati here and there. But joking aside,
yeah. But you obviously resold them to get where you are today.
Obviously, put some butter on them is what I've done. but yeah, it's a peculiar world, it's a peculiar time. And then we talk about, so I mean, the business topic of the week, just very briefly, because I think this is helpful, and this is something that we're doing on a regular basis, Alan. So I'll very briefly go through the business topic of the week, which is, how can SMEs, so small to medium enterprises, measure the impact of their inclusion efforts? So measuring the impact of inclusion efforts in small and medium enterprises is crucial for assessing progress and refining strategies. Here are some approaches. You can do employee surveys, you can conduct regular surveys, you can ask specific questions about their experiences, sense of belonging, perceptions of diversity and equity. You can have inclusion metrics, so you can develop performance KPIs related to inclusion. Examples include representation metrics, track the diversity, retention rates, monitor turnover rates, promotion rates, assess whether promotions are equitable, participation, sort of all of these type of things. And then qualitative interviews and focus groups. You can conduct one-to-one interviews, explore their experiences, challenges, and suggestions related to inclusion. You can do some benchmarking, see how you perform against others. You can look at business impact assessment, link inclusion efforts to business outcomes, assess how inclusion positively affects productivity. You can look at case studies and success stories, collect and share stories, highlight positive outcomes. But remember that measuring inclusion is an ongoing process. Regularly review data, adapt strategies that involve employees in shaping your inclusion agenda. By doing so, SMEs can create a workplace where everyone feels valued and empowered. Alan, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a really good list. How are you sure that the people who respond don't know the way they're supposed to respond as opposed to being truthful? Because I think there's two statements now I hear regularly in small groups. The world's gone mad, and you can't say that. And every time some people apparently jump out of the pot and say something, the first thing that happens is everybody jumps down their throat. So how can you be sure that you're actually getting truthful response, or you're getting the responses you want? If I'm an employer, I've got 10 people, I do something on inclusion, I ask a few questions. But if my employees depend on me as a manager or something else, think if I say the wrong thing, I might be isolated, I might not get promoted, I might be in a situation where I'm put on a diversity course, etc., then I might as well just play the game. So I don't know where you put the percentage of correctness against the responses you get.
And I think that, once again, incredibly valid points. So there's an element of, and interestingly, we were just having this debate here, but there's a push towards something, right? And sometimes it feels as if it's happening without everyone being engaged in it. And if I was to explain that in a little bit more, just picking up on what you're saying there, Alan, is that for me, if you've got a company filled with, so Jalf, here's a good example. How many white people have you got working in your restaurants?
I've got in Kai Kai, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 50. So
how many white people do you serve?
Well, 98%.
So that's outrageous.
Well, 95%, let's say.
So thinking through that, so you've got 5, so 10% of your workforce represents 98% of your customers.
Yeah. But I mean, but it is you see, I was just thinking about that in case there was any questions asked. So for example, in the kitchen team, could I get a white chef who's who's being raised in the UK, but he is a chef. But is he going to be able to come in immediately, understand the cuisine, and deliver me authentic regional curries? Because the profile of chefs that we look for is those that have been to catering school in the Indian subcontinent, where they've been taught and nurtured about the whole hospitality industry and the cuisine and the regional differences and the spices and the food and A, B, C, and D. Then they work themselves up as apprentices from the big hotels, from the pot wash area, all the way over a number of years to become a chef and possibly an executive chef. And they've probably had from the age of 18 till about 35 when they usually they could be a head chef if they're good. So you've got 18 years of study for them to be able to come in for us to look at them and recruit them. So maybe is it us being lazy because we look at that profile as a important need? So then that would just cross off many English chefs that are in the UK that may make an application because they don't have that history or that background. So automatically you have a full kitchen team of chefs that are of some kind of ethnicity, and whether it be Nepalese or whether it be, I mean, they're not all from India as such. Effectively they're all from the Indian subcontinent, which is the cuisine that we serve. So from that perspective.
Sorry, Jeff, yeah. I just think by Ammar raising that question, you felt you had to defend, or feel as if you defend the position. As one of your 98% of white customers, I actually couldn't care less who you employ, whatever colour, nationality, race, etc. You've already highlighted basically you're picking the best people to do the job you require them with the skills they have to be able to provide the service to the customer. So I ain't bothered whether they're white, black,
Well, Alan,
and you know, my sort
Winston.
of questioning, my questioning was obviously I was instructing Winston to eat you, is what.
Oh, he's in the corner here. You just have to apologise for Winston.
Right. And for the benefit of all of our listeners and the tape, obviously, that's Winston sat in the corner, is what he is. No, you don't need to get him. You know, you've occasionally threatened us with him. Hello, Winston. Obviously, our listeners who tune in.
Jaff's learned about dogs. Say hello to Jaff.
Hey, Winston,
hello, Jaff.
Hey, sausages.
Anyway,
I like dogs.
I like dogs after my conversation with Alan.
And you know, Jaff, that's 6 years.
That was outrageous. That was so insensitive, Jaff. That was the worst thing you could ever done. Yeah, I can't believe you acted in that way.
But at least I've changed my outlook towards dogs now. Like, what a cute little puppy that you have there. Well, I wouldn't say it's a puppy, but what a cute. I couldn't tell you what dog it is, but it looks cute.
He's a Cavapoo, Jaff. But would you believe when we had that distressful conversation when I was teaching you? That's 6 years ago. How time flies.
I can't believe it has flown.
Hello, Jaff.
Sausages. Anyway, the point and the reason for me asking this question wasn't to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I think we should always regularly ask the questions, are we doing the best we can? But we should be recruiting the right people, regardless of what color they are, right? Regardless of whether they're female or male or whatever it is. Obviously, where there has been a lack of representation because of historical things, we should be trying to inspire and encourage more people, right? So Jalf should absolutely be saying I would love to have someone from Newcastle, you know, who's white, who's travelled wherever, done whatever, and can come and work in my kitchen because he's the best person or she's the best person to be my head chef in a world-class restaurant. Right? That's absolutely what we should be. And we should be encouraging more people just because it's an Indian restaurant doesn't mean you have to be Indian to work there, right? That's the one of the critical aspects. Having said all of that, and the point that I was going to come on to make is because at this moment in time, Alan, you like are at the end of whatever end. You're white, you're male, you're middle aged. Well, you're getting on a bit, but like, and we're marginalizing the majority, right? So all of a sudden, imagine this as a scenario, because this is happening up and down the country. I'm a white person. Yes, I was educated in a reasonable way, might even have been privately educated. And however, as far as I'm concerned, I've done the best I could and the best I have. And I'm a member, and I've worked my way up this company, and all of a sudden I'm on the board of this PLC, and then all of a sudden someone's coming in and going, oh, we need less of you, right? In fact, because 9 out of 10 members of this board who have done the best they can, there's no question about have they done the best they can. It's 9 out of 10 people on this board. Well, we're going to replace half of you with women, and we're going to replace a few of you with some ethnic people because that's what we should do. How does that make that person feel?
I think it's all wrong, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think the most critical part of that question that you've just asked in terms of inclusivity, most importantly, it's all about, is that person the best person for their job, regardless of which background they're from? And if you have to start ticking boxes and say, oh, well, I need to have a multi-ethnic group of people working, and I must tick a box, and one person must be black, one person must be a hijabi, one person must be white, A, B, C, and D, but you don't get the best of the best, do you? It's a bit like, there's a big debate at the moment, I don't know if you've privy to it, referenced Joey Barton, the former Newcastle United player. And he's really, really vocal about the commentators that come and comment on football, and they do the punditry at the end. And he absolutely hates most of the female commentators because he feels as a footballer that he doesn't get anything from them, and they're not able to cut the tactical element of it as good as what the male can do it. And he's like saying that women stay out of the male sport, and he's deemed as a very controversial figure. But his argument is that if they are good enough genuinely, then it's all good. But if you want to just all of a sudden have lots of women presenting men's football because you want to tick all the boxes, and then it's not the correct thing. And I have to say that I understand where Joey Barton has come from. When I watch some presenters, and there's some brilliant female presenters like Gabby Logan and so many others, right? But some of them, you go there and really, actually, I just think that I'm irritated because I can't understand. I prefer to watch Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and all the other great pundits that are there. Maybe it's because I'm used to it, but when it changes and they're not as good, I don't enjoy it as much.
And I followed Joey Barton's viewpoint. I mean, I don't follow horse racing, but I do like talk sport. And Cheltenham's on at the moment, and Rupert Bell's like the expert, and there's this person who was a jockey. I think her first name's Lizzie. And when I listen to her, what she doesn't know about horses isn't worth knowing, from my perspective of knowing nothing. The next step of that would be, if I'm in a boardroom of 10 white middle-aged men, depending on the business, somebody somewhere is going to say, why haven't you got any women, and why you've not got diversity, as opposed to, is the business working? And that's the world we're under, because we succumb to outside pressures, don't we?
Well, is there not some kind of
there's a balance to everything. So there's, sorry, just for the purposes of balance. So there's a balance to these things. Now, I also believe in opportunity and equal opportunity, fairness, right? is what I believe. And I'm agreeing that it should always be the right person for the job, right? But what if, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, what if
Unusual.
well, very unusual. But anyway, did you not see me? Can you remember Stairway to Heaven? Is this not like angelic? Is that not like some TV
I remember the
program?
song by Led
What?
Zeppelin.
No, was there not what was that TV program with a couple of guys? One was an angel from the like early 80s, late 70s, American, and they walked around and they'd do good deeds, and it was like a TV program. Anyway, it'll come to me. I thought it was called Something to Heaven. Might not be Stairway to Heaven, but it was something to heaven. So devil's advocate, what happens though if because of the lack of opportunity, right? Because women or Asian or ethnic people or disabled people or whatever don't feature in those places and spaces because they've never had the chance to. So how do you address that? How do you encourage, like, if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? Is part of the challenge. That's one of the challenges. So you know, whether Joey Barton's view of it should only be men, I don't know. I'm not following that. And equally, I do believe that people should be given opportunities to grow and add value. Because when we talk, right, so in here, we regularly have conversations like this, right, with the staff, with the team members, whatever it is. So there's people, we're fasting in here, certain people are fasting, Nipa's in here, and I'm just using this as an example, and it's probably a really rubbish one compared to what we've just been talking about, but understanding or appreciation or whatever it was. And someone said in the office, I'm going to go to the shop does anyone want anything from the lunch? Now, Nipa sat in that office fasting, and Martha says, oh, yeah, might want to eat next door because Nipa's fasting. It might not be nice and whatever else. No one really thought that through. Now, the reason why, there's the two sides to every element is, yes, and don't forget that I'm absolutely in agreement that people shouldn't be kicked off things because of quota or numbers, right? If someone's doing the best they can and they're the best they are, then amazing. But we equally need to create opportunities for other people to come into those environments, don't we?
I'm interested in your example because obviously through
just a distraction.
No, but through Eid and Ramadan and through the religion, there's a decision that you do not wish to eat through certain periods of the day. So that's fine. I've got no problem with that decision. But should somebody else have to make a decision to manage your decision? He's gone. Surely not. Jalf?
I think it's personally, like for me personally, when I'm fasting and I'm not eating, I have, like the other day we had some designers came from London, and my GM, Graziella, I said to one of the guys, right, make 3 lunches, please. And she made, and then she straight away said, well, actually, I'm not having my lunch today. So they made 2 lunches and she didn't have a lunch. And I'm not sure whether it was because of, I didn't ask her the question, whether she felt, oh, I'm not going to eat lunch around Jalf because he's fasting. I feel I'm going to eat separately by myself in another table. I don't know. That's probably not something that it doesn't bother me either way. In fact, I would prefer if she sat next to me and had her lunch as normal, but I think they might feel, oh no, actually they're not eating. I'm going to just be a bit respectful of the situation. So I guess it's up to the individual to make the decision. I think the awareness is a nice thing, but I think it wouldn't bother me either way. So
to be clear, no one should be forced. No one should be. Alan, I'm not suggesting that anyone should be forced to follow somebody else's religion as well. And apologies, that was the doctors who had asked to call me back after 11, and obviously that wasn't the case.
Look,
Hey, Alan.
Sorry?
Sorry, Alan, just on a different point, a bit more interesting. You're watching Cheltenham, right? The racing.
Well, listen to it. You carry on here.
Okay, so what do you feel about Ladies' Day, it's been called Ladies' Day for 150 years or something?
Yeah.
Now they've changed it to they've changed it to something else.
I don't know. Is
So
it
is it
fashion
not-
day or something like that?
So are the ladies not given the, I don't know, the priority anymore? They're not seen as important anymore in society? I don't really know what's going on.
Well, I suppose, I'd like to think the three of us are quite sort of forward thinking. So I'm never bothered whether it's a ladies' day, a man's day, a kid's day. It doesn't make any difference to me. I respect, and we go back to that word, respect what's happening without getting upset about it. But I do think there are more vociferous voices around, and we keep saying they're minority voices, but they seem to have majority or a large influence on the way the rest of us think. And because of the very nature of the nation we live in, we're quite placid individuals. We don't go looking for confrontation. We just sail along. But I do think certain things are starting to just maybe, I was going to use the word kickback, but just maybe start be a little bit more inquisitive as to why.
Well, yeah, because there's a bigger picture in play, isn't there? I mean, what is wrong with calling something Ladies' Day? I mean, what is not inclusive about that? I don't understand it. If it's been something for so long, the Ladies' Day, it's a day, from what I understand, you're focusing on the ladies.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
come out all dressed up and looking really cool, and they go out, and it's maybe it started off all those years ago to honor the ladies and say, oh yeah, we're doing something dedicated just for yourselves. It's going to be named after you. You're going to go out, wear your best dress, and look really, really cool, and you're going to have a really good few days out, or a good day out, or a good 2 days out, or whatever it is.
Probably all of the men that have complained.
Yeah, I mean, there's
What do
another
they want?
question.
What do they want? A men's day or something? Then call it the men. I mean,
Anyway, I think. Look, I think there's a whole host of things that we may not disagree with. I think it's wonderful that there is such a thing as Ladies' Day. In fact, it's one of the best days in any race. In any race is what it is. I think, because it's just nice to see people. Sort of making an effort for themselves and sort of going out with their friends and all of that. I've encouraged everyone to go and do that. However, on the flip side of that, Jalf, here's an interesting example of inequality and unfairness. So my 11-year-old son came home a few weeks back and said, he didn't say it to me, he said to Mum, why are you all right? He's like, no, not really. He's like, I wasn't allowed to play football today because it was girls only. And it was only the girls who were allowed to play on the girls' team with other girls. And that was it. He says, but the girls join our team and I'm happy with that. I don't have a problem with that. Why can't I go and play? He says, I just want to play football. I just love playing football. Why can't I play football with them? Winston, what's your answer?
Well, no, because the time's moving on. Just when you mentioned the doc before, do you know our good friend Doc Anand is doing the Gosforth Against Graffiti, trying our best to sort of get that wall as you come down Grandstand Road cleaned. So he's got a little meeting there at 3 p.m. today if anybody wants to come along, and he's trying to do some crowd funding to get it sorted and just the should we say the avenue to Newcastle and Gosforth looking what it should be, because you don't get me in. I'm not into the group that thinks graffiti's art. I think it should be stamped upon, but there's another thing. So Gosforth Against Graffiti, 3 p.m. on the Little Moor. A little bit advertising there, Marv, if you don't mind.
No problem, sir. What? Sorry, what? Where? When?
Well, the Little Moor, 3 p.m. You know, as you come down Grandstand Road and you see that brick wall with all the graffiti on, and it's like an eyesore as it entered into Gosforth and into Newcastle and the Town Moor. I say the Doc and one or two others of ourselves have been trying to get together.
I'm trying to picture where you mean.
Come
Yeah.
down from the Cowell roundabout, Grandstand Road, as if you turned into Kenton Road. All that wall where the home is and all the way around, it's just a massive graffiti.
I've never noticed it.
Jaff, you know what I mean, don't you?
Grandstand Road, right? So,
Coming down Grandstand Road,
opposite,
heading
is it opposite
towards the
Quick
Blue
Shop?
House roundabout.
so you're near, so yeah, Blue House roundabout, right?
No,
And you
if you're coming down Grandstand Road,
what
you would hit
what
the
does
traffic
down mean
lights.
from where?
You would hit from the CME coming down from the Cow Hill roundabout possibly, and if you're heading
Okay.
over the Blue House roundabout, you hit the traffic lights.
Yeah.
On your
Yeah.
left-hand side, that stone wall, which is part of the Freeman, we've had a lot of trouble finding out where it is. It's just covered in graffiti. So we've been trying, a small group of us, to get together some support and crowdfunding to get it removed and stopped and just make it look what it is. It should be a feature, not an eyesore.
Why would the council not pay for that?
They say that as long as it at the moment, there are lots of discussions, but they suggest that as long as the graffiti hasn't got racial connotations, and then there was issues about who owned the wall. The Freemen haven't been the greatest to find out. It turns out that the walls, each person who bought the house there has a covenant within the deeds to say they're responsible for the wall maintenance, but it doesn't say anything about graffiti. Anyway, that's where we're up to. It's 3 p.m. They've done loads of leaflet dropping. They're going to do a crowdfunding.
Today?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
All right.
And
Wonderful.
we've got somebody who can remove it and deal with it properly. We just need to, and so we've had one business person started off with a £500 donation, which is really nice.
Mm.
So hey, a little bit of advertising because I know we're getting on time.
Amazing. Good. Well done. So I think that these type of things, and don't forget other parties are doing other things in other areas just from Ofcom perspective. But it's great to see.
I didn't mention anything about parties.
I realise that. And obviously this whole Diane Abbott talking about parties.
Oh no.
But we've only got 1 minute to talk about this. I hadn't realised, gosh, she looked distinctly different. I imagine we all do. But I was looking at pictures of her being the first black female MP. I thought that was wonderful. But didn't she look
1987.
so different?
Yeah, well, because she might have been a bit windswept in '87 because she'd be on the back of Jerry Corbyn's motorbike, wouldn't she?
I thought you were going to say Jerry Springer there. And that would have been a nice
She was big
segue into
with-
the start.
I'm sure she went around Europe with Jeremy Corbyn on the back of his motorbike.
So next week I may not be here. Can you and Jalf do the Jalf and Allan show? Is that all right?
If that's all right with Jalf, do you want to?
Yeah, I should be able to.
I think it's important to keep going and keep the thing. I'll give you some topics. I'll email over a brief. I'll get Elizabeth pulls a full produces a show and everything else. So I'll get that sent over and they'll log you on and do everything and everything.
Yeah, Jalf, no pressure for you and I. We're allowed to do it by ourselves. We don't know how to use Zoom, and we've got what we've got to talk about. So lots of responsibility provided there with the rules.
Excellent.
Don't forget, we've got the Curry Club. We've got the Curry Club on the 27th. We're going to be breaking iftar with everyone fasting, and we're going to be celebrating inclusion. So thank you, Alan. We've changed the date.
Curry Club's the 28th.
It's not. We brought it forward. Remember the conversation?
All right, you brought it to the Wednesday, have you? Right. Okay.
Because it's Maundy Thursday, obviously religious sort of thing.
Yeah. Nothing to do with the wife either. Okay. Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
anyway, you've been listening to Ammar and
Jalf
and Allan and Winston. Oh, thanks, Ammar.
Your only Bollywood station in Newcastle.
See you next week,
FM 98.8 FM.
The Deputy Leader of the Scottish Tories has said she will seek clarification on reports of a further donation to the UK party from Frank Hester. Mr Hester has been under fire this week after alleged racist remarks about MP Diane Abbott. Reports suggest the Tories may have received £5 million more than previously declared. Ministers are expected to back a fresh bid to crack down on puppy smuggling. It's after MPs urged the government to reveal how it will fulfil a series of promises to bolster animal welfare. Tory MP Selene Saxby's proposed legislation would ban dogs and cats under 6 months from being brought into the UK. A former children's commissioner has said universal free school meals should be targeted in poor